Good morning.
Hey, good evening. Alright guys, were you able to practice what we did yesterday? Were you able to create a view on your servers and then extract data from there? Hello? China, were you able to practice? China, Jyotsna, Rajiv? Okay, cool. Rajiv, were you able to check that up? Yesterday we got stuck somewhere, right? Okay. Just checking on if the replication brought in any more data sources because we fixed that issue yesterday. Do you see this here? Ctrans ZView sales. You can just go and click on change. These are the fields that we brought in here, right? So 7 of them. You just go and activate this. Just go ahead and create an info package if you want to directly here. Data selection, so we get a data selection in here, the extraction, the processing till the PSA, update, and schedule. So you can click on the start button. You can see that data will move from your source to the alright. So all your 8,880 records from both of these tables, the view has moved in. From here you create a DTP, and then if you create a DSO or something, just go ahead and push that data from here into that. Alright, so this is how you handle a view when you're extracting data for a generic extractor. Alright, so now that we've seen the generic extraction, we will go ahead and look at the logistic extractors as well. Now, all the extractors that belong to logistics, all of them are placed at one single place, and they are maintained from there. Like how you go ahead and create a generic extractor, and then how do you maintain all that. So similarly, you have the logistic extractors from where you can maintain, and we call that as the logistic cockpit, right? Because all of these extractors are present in it. The transaction code that you have for the logistic extractors in ECC, that is called LBWE. That is LBWE, and if you go to this place, you would find this logistic extractors, okay, logistic cockpit. Now here at the logistic cockpit you have different set of logistic extractors. You have purchasing, inventory, shop floor, quality management, invoice, shipment, sales orders, shipping, billing, plant maintenance. All of these are present here at the logistic extractors, and all of these are application components. If you see, there's a number preceding these names, and this is nothing but the standard number for their application component. Now, whenever you see the extractor, the standard of how the extractor is named is you will find the standard to be it's 2LIS underscore your application component number underscore your extractor name. Could be a sales header or sales item or anything. So VA is for sales, and you could be VA item, or so it will be more like application component for sales header and sales orders. If you look at this, you'll have 2LS 11BA HDR to ls 11BA item or to ls VAKON. So it'll be like that. Okay, schedule line and all that. So basically your standard of how your extractor is named is 2ls, 11 is the application component, and sales header. Right. So if you look at purchasing, it will be 2ls 02 underscore header, or yeah, purchasing header or accounts. So that's how your extractors will be named. Now, in ACC, the entire application will have something called setup table. Okay. Now, what are these setup tables? Is it will contain the structure of data that can be brought from that application. So, if you're talking about sales order, okay. So, sales order, you have 11 as the application component, and you have a lot of different extractors based on that. So, it will bring in header data, item data, schedule line data, and all of these. The setup table will have all the fields that are required for all of these extractors. Okay, so and the setup table is the one from where you extract your data to do your full load. Okay, so all the transactions that you do in your on your basic OLTP system, once you save them, they basically go to your base tables underlying, and from the base tables they move to your setup tables when you execute them, right? And from the setup tables, after you fill up the setup tables, you will extract the data whenever you run your info package with the setting set update set to full load. You will be extracting data from the setup tables provided for each of these application components. Now, I told you that the setup table will have the entire structure of all of these fields, right? So now all of these extractors. So it is never possible that you could empty out one of the extractors and refill just one single extractor. Now let's say you want to reset the extractor. Okay. Now it means that you want to go ahead and delete whatever is there, and you want to freshly pull all that data, the historical records, everything till now. You want to bring it into the setup table. So if you go ahead and delete data from the setup tables, it means that all of these extractors will have 0 records. Okay, it is not one extractor that will lose data. It will be the entire set of these extractors that will lose data. Okay, and then you will have to go and fill up these extractors or the setup tables again for these extractors to handle the full load. So it will be like this. So first your daily transactions, these will go to your, these will go to your base tables. The extractors are built on these base tables, but the Logistic Cockpit will have the setup tables. Which will have the entire set of fields. Okay. From here you will have Alright, so first data has to move to your extractor, and first your data has to move from your transaction to your uh, base tables. From your base tables, data has to move to your setup tables. Alright. So these are the basic tables or extractors that you have for, let's say we're talking about sales orders now. Okay. Now, if you want to see what are the base tables involved with this particular extractor, so how would you go ahead and check it? So all of these, if you see, are green and they are in active mode. So if you want to do any maintenance, alright, so I'll tell you what exactly is the maintenance that you could do. If you want to do any maintenance for these extractors, the first step that you have to do is you'll have to deactivate a particular extractor. Okay. Once you deactivate, then you can go ahead and do the maintenance. Once you do the maintenance, then you can go ahead and activate the extractor again. Okay. And these will be first present at RSA 5. So you will see them at RSA 5. If you activate them, it will move to RSA 6. But for maintenance of the extractor, okay, you will have to come to LBWE, nothing but your logistic cockpit. Alright, so what I'll do is first let me change my active status. So I'll make this inactive. So right now it is in green color. So what I do is click on the active button again. So it will ask me to do a transport. Okay, so I've created it as an active. Now if you see, the status has changed to yellow. Okay, once you go ahead and inactivate this particular extractor, then you can go and click on maintenance. The maintenance will tell you the tables involved in bringing the data for this extractor. Onto your right, you will have uh, all the fields that you would actually be moving from here. So you basically have moved all the fields that are related to VBAK from this end. So that's why you would have. So if you see, so we saw what is the extract structure and we saw what is the transfer structure, right? So if you look at it, to look at the base, now this is an extractor that is already pre-built by SAP, alright? So SAP has already built it, and then you go and in case you want to add a new few fields, or you want to remove off a few fields which are not necessary, you could go ahead and do that. So here, if you want to see from where this data is coming, to the right is your extract structure from all the fields that are there from the base tables. How do you know what are the base tables? If you look at the extractor, the first column that is in here and the ones after MC, those are the table names. VBAK is one table. So if you go all the way down, you will find the other table that is involved with. If you see this, you have VBUK. So this extractor is built on VBAK and VBUK. Alright, so a join or a view is created, and then the extractor is created. So once you go ahead and define this, by default they have given a few fields that are necessary. So majorly you have the VBAK table data coming in and a couple of VBUK. So let's say you want to add a particular field from this. This is the actual transfer structure. So out of those 200 fields or something. SAP thinks that these 26 fields are the ones that are needed. So apart from that, let's say you want to go and bring in more. So let's say you have a particular field like controlling area. So you can bring this in here. Okay, and then you can go and say continue. So it is saying that you cannot go ahead and right now change this. The basic reason being the setup table has data. So if you're changing the structure here, it means that you're actually changing the configuration of the setup tables. The setup tables previously had 180 of those fields. Now we're changing it to 26 or 27 fields. Now if you want to make that change, what you'll have to do is first you will have to get the data out of the setup tables, make this structure empty, then you can do something with the structure. But when data is there, if you try to take off a few fields and add a few fields, the system will say that I cannot do that right now. Alright, so what you'll have to do is you have to go ahead and first remove all the data. So before that, let's see if the extractor has any data in it. How do you check it? Through the RSAT transaction code, which is your extract checker. Now go in here and say 2ls underscore 11 underscore VAHDR. Say extract. So it has 7,800 rows of data, and so what I'll have to do is I'll have to go ahead and drop this data. But if I go ahead and delete data, there's no way I can delete data from an individual extractor here. If you delete the data, it'll have to be deleted from the application component itself. So you'll have to go and mention 11, which means all of these will go blank. Alright, so but let's go ahead and do that. So the transaction code for deleting data from the application, you will have a transaction code called LBWG. Right, so if you click on this, it will ask you the name of the application. Okay, deletion of setup data. So 11 is the sales order. So if you go and select SD sales BW, so if you select 11 and say delete, say click yes. Setup tables deleted successfully. Alright, now if you go into the Logistic Cockpit, or if you go into your extract checker and do the same thing, check for the extraction. Alright, and see, you will have 0 records selected. The entire setup table has been deleted. Now you want to go ahead and do some experimenting with this particular extractor. Let's say you added this purchase order, and then now this is changed to 227. Previously it was 180. So I'll click on continue. So I'll say yes. Since now there is no data in the setup tables, I have the option to actually go and change the structure of this extractor. Previously it was handling 180 fields. Now what I do is I want to bring it down to 27 fields, which means that the structure of the setup tables is being changed. So it is asking for a transport to capture the change. I'll say continue. Extract structure is being generated. Alright. Alright. Now if you see, this has been changed to red. Okay. Once your structure is changed, now you'll have to go ahead and generate the data source. So that is nothing but alright. So if you see this, if you remember, when we did the generic extractor, you had a pretty similar thing. If you take your extract structure and then you select whatever you want, if you want to select the hide fields or you want to go ahead and select fields, so you can go ahead and select whatever are the fields that you want. So you're already given selection and VBLN, let's see if that is selected. Yeah, these are all the hide fields. You can go ahead and say generate the extractor. So you can click on this or just go and save. You will have the same option. So if you click on generate, so if you see, it is changed to yellow again. Okay. And the next thing that you'll have to do is go ahead and change this. So you don't go ahead and do all this on the production environment, and it is not something that we just go ahead and normally go ahead and do. It needs a lot of approvals, it needs a lot of functional this thing to even go ahead and add a particular field. It is not like how I'm showing it here. Your logistic, if you're actually into a project, usually the first thing when they do the implementation, they come up with whatever are the fields that are necessary, and they're looking at not just one thing over a period of time, whatever are the fields, they'll decide on all of that, and then give you the list to create the or to move the data from there. It is not that in between the year sometime you just go ahead and change the extractor. It is not so common. But if you want to go ahead and change, then you will have to definitely drop the data off, and then you will have to go ahead and pull that up again. And usually when you do that, you will have to take a backup of data of whichever is loaded. You will have to take a downtime. Then you will have to also take some time out to reload all the historical data. I wouldn't know that there might be too much of data. You will have to check how much data is there in each of these tables, in the base tables, and based on that you will give the downtime as to how long it will load the historical data. And then you will have to set up your deltas and all that. So there is quite a lot of process before you do anything in the production system. Right? So if you still have to do it on the production system, definitely yes, you'll have to delete the data and do that. There's no other option in case you want to change the extract structure itself. Alright, so once you go ahead and do that, the next thing is you'll have to go ahead and activate this particular extractor. Now you see that it is green, back to green again. But if you go ahead and do the extract checker, still do not have any data. Now you'll have to go ahead and you've deleted the data from there, and you'll have to go ahead and extract the data, right? So what you do is you'll have to go in and you'll have to fill the setup tables. Okay, and how do you fill the setup tables? Like how you delete the setup tables. You will have to go and fill the setup tables. But how do you define? So you go and check for how much data is there in your VBAK and VBUK tables. Based on that, you will have to give a time for your extraction of data from the base tables, VBAK and VBUK, into the setup tables. Alright, so what you do is there's this transaction code called SBIW. Press enter. So here, if you go into the IMG, you have a tab here called Setting for Application Specific Data Sources PI. So you can select that. Under that, you have something called as Logistics. Open Logistics. Under Logistics, you have Managing Extract Structures. And here you have another tab called Initialization. So open Initialization. Then you have filling in the setup tables. Open that. So application specific setup of statistical data. So we are filling that data application specific, right? So you go and open the application specific setup of the setup table. So here you have all the application specific setup tables filling in, and you will have the sales orders somewhere. That's what you will have to do. So if you see here, SD sales orders, platform setup, perform setup. So you can go and click on the execute button here. So if you click on it, the system will bring you to one screen where you can specify the selections for you to fill the setup table, and also you can execute this movement of data from your base tables into the setup tables. Okay, but you'll have to know what is the data count and how much time it will take for your extraction to happen. Okay. Just take you through that path again. SBIW is a transaction code. It will take you to IMG. There you'll have a place called Setting Up for Application Specific Data Sources PI. Open that up. You will have Logistics. Under Logistics, you would have Managing Extract Structures. Under Managing Extract Structures, you have Initialization. Under Initialization, you have filling in the setup tables, and then under that you have application specific setup of statistical data. Once you do that, go to sales order and click on it. So in this screen you will find that on the top you have document data restriction. Basically you can filter out what documents you need, and the name of the run. So to move the data from the base tables to the actual setup tables, if you want to schedule, you will have to go ahead and define the name of the run. So let's say I'll just put in my name in here. Okay, and it'll ask you a termination time till when this job should run. So right now it's 5:41 here, or 5:40 or something. So let's say I give it a 10-minute run. So I'll say 5:50. And then I'll go and let it run for probably 8 or 10 minutes, before which it will collect all the data as necessary and bring it in here. Now let me go and click on execute. So it says start of order processing. So it's still extracting data from the base tables into the setup tables. Just give me 2 quick moments, please. So if you see this here, and see that error determining rate for INR date for document. So click on exit. Now let's see if the setup tables are filled. We can go to RSA3. Alright, so there are 7,800 records that are there in both of these tables. they have picked up, and which means that you have all your extractors. So let's say VHDR. Now if you go to VA item, so all of these are filled in for the setup tables are filled. Now this change on the extractor has to be imported into the BW system. How do you do that? You go to the BW system. If you go to data sources, right, look for 12S11 VAHDR. Alright, so you already have this extractor in here. If you see, click on change here. You'll find that it has quite some records in here. I mean, you always have so 185 fields are available. Now, instead of all of these, I would want to bring in this new structure. So what I do is I go ahead and replicate just this data source alone. Okay, so what I can do is I can right click on this particular extractor and say replicate metadata. Now when I say replicate metadata, the structure of whatever is changed there, that will be brought in here. So if I click on replicate metadata, the system goes, checks the structure of whatever is there, and then it brings that in. So from here it is removed, and let's check where it is gone to. Alright, so you got 12S11 VHDR. Go and click on change. How many records do you have? Alright, so you have these 32 fields or 30 fields that we brought in from there. You can go and activate this particular structure. Now you can go ahead and create or you can go ahead and use the info package from here. If you look at it, the data selection will have all the fields that you have selected the thing at the extract structure. Then your extraction is anyways from SAP, your processing is from PSA directly till the PSA. If you look at the update, here you have something called as full update. So you can, whenever you're clicking on the full update, the data will come from your setup tables. Now under that you have quite some other options. We'll talk about that a little later on. But whenever you want to do your full update, remember that your data is coming directly from your setup tables. So you can go in here, click on schedule, then you can click on the start button. Okay. 1 second. So you can click on the start button. Let's see if data is moved from there. all those 7,800 records that are there in the base tables, I mean the setup tables, all of that data has been moved into the BW system. Okay. If you want to take a look at your data. Alright. So these are the steps that are involved for extracting data from the Logistic Cockpit. So the Logistic Cockpit specifically will vary from application to application. You will have purchasing, inventory. With the basic steps is that you will have to first bring your historical data through the setup tables. Once you finish bringing the historical data through the setup tables, then you'll have to initialize your data source for handling delta, and then from there you can go ahead and do your delta setup. Alright, so before we do that, you have to do some setup on the ECC side, and that is through the transaction called LBEW. So we go to the Logistic Cockpit, and then we go ahead and set up the entire structure for the extractor. Right. Can you explain after you traced the data source on the BW side or on ECC? Right, you go to the BW side, you first go ahead and check where your extractor is. So once you go ahead and look at your extractor, now the changes that you made in the structure has to be brought in here. Alright, so if you want to go and bring that change, previously what you did was you go ahead and over the sales and distribution you go and click on replicate. So what you used to do when you click on replicate, it used to bring in all the new structures that have been added. That's a waste of time because it is checking on all the 275 extractors that are there. It will check all the programs and see if all of them are correct. And then finally it will go ahead and say, okay, your extractor is new, so do you want me to bring that in? So instead of doing all of that, your 2LS11 VHDR is anyways there in your sales and distribution, in your logistics. So you can go ahead and just check where that particular extractor is, and you can activate, or you can just replicate that single extractor itself because you've not made any changes to anything else. Okay, so you can just right click on it and say replicate metadata. So it will replicate the metadata from your source. Once you do that, you can go and define an info package under that, and you can extract your data. Alright, then you can go to your info package, and then you can extract your data from the info package. So your info package always in the update mode, if you set it up to full, it means that it is always hitting your setup tables. Okay, there are two pointers through which you can move the info package. Whenever you set it up to full upload, it means you are bringing the entire historical data till this present moment from the ECC system through the setup tables. So first you have to set up the tables, and see if you define a termination date before which you want to cancel the job that you select for moving the data from your base tables to the setup tables as well. So once you define that, you move the data, and then from the move you go ahead and start uh, uh, extracting it through the info package. Alright. The same thing applies to any of the extractors in that particular logistic cockpit. Any questions on that? Yeah. Whenever you want to move data from a non-SAP or SAP system, your source system, into BW, you will have to first create an info package. The info package will bring your data from the system, source system, to your BW system till the PSA level. Alright. Once you get your data till the PSA, that is when your DTP comes into picture. Alright. So if you look at the info package, you have a few options here. Once you finish your full update, meaning that all your historical data is loaded, then before you set up your delta, you have a few options in here. So you select the initialization delta process. You have initialization with data transfer, initialization without data transfer, early delta initialization. So these three are the ones that usually you see. Early delta also is not there in any of them. You only have these two options in the initialize phase. One is initialization with data transfer. The second one is initialization without data transfer. Initialization is the process through which you will set up your delta pointer. Now your entire data is there, and then you will have to somehow find a way to differentiate data that has already come and data that is to come with the changes. So you will set up an initialization pointer which will tell you, okay, this is the data that has been loaded. Then you have just the change records coming in or new records that are created. And when you're doing your initialization, you have two options. So let's say you haven't done a full load of data from the setup tables. So you have an option where it says initialization with data transfer. It means that you're bringing all the data from your historical thing, which is nothing but your setup tables that bring all your data from there, and then it'll load it into the PSA, and then it'll set up a pointer or timestamp through which you can differentiate the data that is loaded and that is not. And then that is one option. Okay, that is where you mention initialization with data transfer, meaning it will bring all the data and then initialize your data source. The second option is you can just select it without data transfer. This is done when you've already loaded your data through a full upload option on your info package. Once you finish your full upload option, then you will go ahead and select uh, the initialization. So it means all your historical data till now, all your historical data till now is loaded, and then you're selecting or setting up uh, a mark which differentiates your historical data and the data that is new. So since you've already done the entire extract using the normal info package with full load, so not to redundantly do that again, you just select the option initialization without data transfer. Then you can directly bring in, or when you say initialization, you will have one record that comes, and that is nothing but your status record. Okay, it will set up a timestamp or a numeric pointer, and you could go ahead and use that to differentiate the data that is loaded historically and all the data that is loaded every day by your Delta process. Right. But for the Delta to happen, you should also go ahead and set up the job in the ECC side under LBWE. You have to mention to the extractor that, okay, now from the base table, so how does the base tables fill in? So basically whenever your transaction is saved on your basic transaction system. So I will go ahead and mention to the system that, okay, during once, let's say for every 1 day, whatever are the transactions that have been created, I'll come and pick all of those whichever there into a particular table, and then that table I'll use it for my delta. So your info package is always pointing to that table, not the setup table whenever you select delta. And since you set up a job in ECC to look for data in that particular 1 year, so the frequency of check for the data from the base tables is 1 year, which means it will check all of the records and everything uh, for 1 day. Alright, so for all the 24 hours it will go whatever are the transactions that are made that are there from the base tables. All of these transactions will be moving from the base tables to your actual tables that contain the delta setup. Okay, it is not to your setup tables, only to the tables that provide data for your deltas. So you have an option for setting up the job control at your extractor level in LBWE. So if you go in here, you'd find that there is an option here for setting up the job control, and this is not done for individual extractor. It is done for a complete setup of this thing for the entire application. Okay. Why not full update? You can do a full update. In case you do a full update and your info package is already having the all the full data, then there's no point in setting up the initialization and transferring all the data back into that DSOR cube, right? So instead, whatever data is loaded, so after that, you know that you want to initialize, select the initialization without data transfer because you have loaded the data previously. And just click on execute, you'll have a status. So anything after this setup has been initialized for delta, your data will always be there for that delta. Alright, but you'll have to mention the frequency of which you will go ahead and do your delta loads. So here, if you want, you can go and click on the job control. So how often do you want it? You can go and mention. This is green. So from tomorrow every day it will come and pull out all your data for that one day, and then from all the base tables the new records will be moved to the delta table, and from there whenever you do your delta it will pick up those records, which we'll see that how to extract the delta records in the next session, and see how exactly data can be pulled through for the delta records. Okay, because there are different options as to what kind of delta you can set up. So you have direct delta, queued delta, and serialized V3 update. So all of these you can go ahead and do. So you have three different movements of data. One is V1, then you have V2, then you have V3. Okay. So V1 is the kind of movement to your base tables. So whenever you enter your transaction, data moves to your base tables. That is your V1. Then V2. Whenever you set up your delta and you set up the frequency of how often you should go and pick up your delta. So you tell, okay, for every 1 day or 1 hour, I want to do a batch check for all the data. So what it will do is there will be a background job that will be scheduled. It will go to all the base tables, which are the new records that have been created. All of them for that particular, for individual extractors, we'll go ahead and check, and it will bring in the necessary records that have been added new from the base tables to this particular area. And that is nothing but your batch schedule for then you have the V3. Alright. So I'll just give me one moment. I'll give you this presentation. It will contain the steps that you can go ahead and perform one by one. So there will be different ways of how your delta will be picked up. So we'll be looking at these options in tomorrow's session. All right. Any questions for today's session? All right. Are we doing a session tomorrow? Just asking. So we're not doing a session tomorrow. Okay. All right. And so we need to go and you check on the setup, and then we'll meet back on tomorrow. I mean day after tomorrow. All right. Yeah. Which is Monday. Alright guys, then I'll see you day after. We'll look at the different delta options and see how we could go ahead with that.
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel.
Right, sir. Take care.
The organized